Glad to be here today. Of course, my name again is Arthur Ortiz. I'm not Dr. Chris Evans.
He was already off the schedule.
Yes. But greetings from Houston. I'm very pleased to be here. I'll tell you briefly about the University of St. Thomas, and also, as always, one thing that's very clear in all of Catholic education is we all certainly welcome and continue to welcome prayers. Right? There's a lot of stuff out there, and we are imperfect ourselves at the university, and I'll tell you a little bit more about a situation that almost happened, which was misconstrued, that really gave us a lot of bad publicity. But I'd like to start with a prayer that we often start off with at the university, which is appropriate that we have so much sense of Dominican connection today, but it's a prayer for students by St. Thomas Aquinas. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Come, Holy Spirit, divine Creator, true, source of light and fountain of wisdom. Pour forth your brilliance upon my dense intellect. Dissipate the darkness which covers me, that of sin and of ignorance. Grant me a penetrating mind to understand, a retentive memory, method and ease in learning, the lucidity to comprehend, and abundant grace in expressing myself. Guide the beginning of my work, direct its progress, and bring it to successful completion. This I ask through Jesus Christ, true God and true man, living and reigning with you and the Father forever and ever. Amen. I always like that prayer. It's kind of like you, Mass.
I had to print it out that,
And I also very much too, doing some youth ministry before I started at the University of St. Thomas. During a lot of the time with St. John Paul the Great, John Paul II the Great, I remember how he used to always emphasize this idea of being attracted to the good, and how young people, we often sell them short, right? They want someone to tell them the good, and they're attracted to it, but sometimes we always try and kind of protect them against it. So the University of St. Thomas, we're located in Houston. We have about 3,400 students total. About 2,000 of those are undergrad, so the grad-undergrad split pretty nicely. And we're founded by the Congregation of St. Basil, or the Basilian Fathers. It's a very small order, and quite honestly, it's a fast declining order. And the Basilians are an interesting lot, and they will tell you this themselves. They're generally dedicated to both, their charisms are to education and to missionary work. And so, interesting enough, they do have, among the Basilian Fathers themselves, they have very interesting personalities, and it's kind of amazing in a certain sense that the University of St. Thomas has kind of thrived and become and been faithful to the magisterium of the church and the Catholic tradition, and given some of the background of the Basilians at times. But we do have some really fantastic priests who work there, and probably the most notable who's come from the University of St. Thomas is, now Archbishop Michael J. Miller, Father Miller, when he was at St. Thomas. And he was called back to Rome twice by Pope John Paul II, who was at one time the Secretary for the Congregation of Catholic Education. And now he's the Archbishop of Vancouver, Canada. So that's a little bit about the university. It's a very diverse and international school as far as the different nationalities of students. High Hispanic population, just culturally high Vietnamese population. So it was kind of wonderful to see the book on Crystal Ray model, because I do want to get that book, is that we have some great things going on, and one of those is that we are actually starting a pilot group at the university this fall of about 15 students that we are extending the Crystal Ray model to them as college students, providing them kind of the work partnerships and employment, and offering up resources throughout, and they're all first-generation low-income students. And our goal is to expand that to 50, 100 over time, to where we provide this model that Crystal Ray is using at the college level. So what I'm going to speak to you a little bit today is going to high school and college. And there's a few ways to kind of review, how we think about that. The main purpose or the main goal is that a number of schools, Catholic schools, both at the high school level and at the college level, at times are being depleted of resources, right? At the college level, even though you hear stories of funding being pulled away from public schools by states and by the federal government, it is impacting private schools a great deal, right? There's all this talk about everything's for free, or we want to give everything for free. And I believe in the state of New York, there's a classic example in talking to some of my peer colleagues at Catholic institutions in New York. They talk about how difficult it's being because everyone's wanting to offer everything for free and the education for free. So essentially what happens, I'll give you one quick example. Last week there was an announcement by the Texas Tribune, or it was in the Texas Tribune and it became national, if you may have heard it. The University of Texas in Austin, the large University of Texas, made an announcement that they will be offering free tuition to students who come from a family income of, I believe, $65,000 or less. Beautiful on the surface, have no problem, it's going to help students, but it's kind of a shell game. The reason I say that is that the in-state tuition for the University of Texas is $11,000. The cost to live on campus is $17,000. This does not extend the housing, so it's just the tuition cost. Typically, students in the state of Texas who come from a family income of $65,000 or less will receive, through the financial aid, federal financial aid, will receive about $6,000 in Pell Grant money and about another $3,000 additional in what they call Texas Grant. So it's about $9,000 of the $11,000 gap there. So yes, they are committing a couple of $1,000s to these students, but it's not quite what it's described. It doesn't apply to out-of-state students, where tuition is $35,000. So my guess is that the University of Texas is going to say, if we admit last year 1,000, well, University of Texas, 3,000 students, and we had 1,500 1,500 in-state, 1,500 out-of-state, this year we'll make it, or my math isn't even good, well, 3,000, yes. This year we'll do 2,000 out-of-state and 15 in-state, and they'll recoup all that money by charging all of the out-of-staters, right? But the reason I mention this is what that does is the University of Texas is they're a mover in the state of Texas, and everyone watches them, which means the legislation, the Texas legislators watch them too. And so when they meet in their next session, it's becoming more and more likely that they will make a decision and say, look at these public schools like University of Texas making all these efforts to make college affordable and in some instances free for students, and they will funnel more assistance to public schools, drying up the private Catholic schools in the state. You know, the University of Dallas is, the University of St. Thomas and the others that are there as well. So there's always a consequence in certain ways for some of these things. So I bring that story up because it leads the foray into the idea of, at the high school level, there's lack of resources at times. You have all these pressures from society and from parents. You have all these other schools that are getting the resources. And sometimes some Catholic institutions at all levels are having difficulty securing the type of curriculum needs that they think will make them more attractive, but more importantly, being able to offer it to their students. So that's where we come in. We talk about achieving two goals at once, and that is the University of St. Thomas working with other Catholic schools, high schools in particular, but I think other Catholic colleges, universities should also do the same, into offering dual credit college coursework. There's a number of benefits to this. Number one, it helps families achieve two goals of having a course achieve their high school curriculum diploma needs, but also be taking it at a college level and getting prepared for college level coursework. That's something that can save families money down the road, because they will come in, they take one class, they'll come in with 3 hours of college credit already, right? So that's one aspect to go. What we do right now is we have about 5 partners in the city of Houston Catholic high schools. And what they've told us is their needs are on the curriculum side. So they want to broaden what they offer. So for example, at Straight Jesuit College Preparatory, we're now offering our ancient philosophy course to their students. We can do this in a number of ways. Their faculty, if they have faculty on staff who have certain credentials that meet our SACS requirements, our accreditation requirements, and we basically deputize them to teach the course. We have the curriculum and everything else, and they physically teach it on the high school campus, but they're taking a college level course. Sometimes we send our professors to go there and teach the course. So that it all depends on the credentials of the others. But some of the high school Catholic school curriculums, just like at the college and university, the theology that's being offered is kind of very diluted, or it's not very present, you know. I'll give an example. I normally don't, I'm not speaking negatively about another college or university, I'm just kind of outlining the facts. So for example, another school in Texas that is really receiving record numbers of enrollments over the last decade or so is in Austin, Texas, St. Edward's University. A fine institution, very high quality instruction, but their Catholic presence is minimal, I would say. You go there and you take one religion course, and I think that can be in pretty much any area that you would like. Whereas when you look at schools like the University of Dallas or the University of St. Thomas, we still maintain, and it's not so much about a distribution of credit hours, but we still maintain every student, when they come in, takes 3 theology courses, 3 philosophy courses, and 1 synthesis course, for a total of 21 college credit courses in their core curriculum. And this is very important to us, and that's why we kind of want to keep that and present that to others. But the decaying in college education, in Catholic college education, has been happening for decades and very quickly. So we have a vested interest that it starts at the lower levels of Catholic education, which will hopefully positively continue to impact Catholic colleges and universities. So I talked about the funding. There's also, and I alluded to, the difficulty in finding fidelity to the teachings of the church and to the magisterium. And so what we feel that we can offer is, with these Catholic schools, also the ability to know that the coursework that they're taking in philosophy and theology is in line with the teachings of the church. Okay? We also offer some other curriculum outside of philosophy and theology. For example, we had one partner who said, look, we really want to teach a sociology class. We don't have the curriculum. Can you guys help us with that? So we're teaching a sociology class at Sacred Heart, Shin Sacred Heart Academy in Houston. So we have these partner schools, and this has been working well for both partners. And we thought of an idea, and we thought, well, if we can do this, how can we reach more students, more families out there that have a need? We didn't know where this was going to go, so but we contacted Seton Home Study and asked them, you know, what are your feelings or thoughts towards online coursework? Do you offer any? Yes, we do, you know. So we started talking. We actually signed a partnership or agreement with them. We're not really doing it to make any money. It's basically neutral on both sides, just to make sure it's not costing anyone any money. But now Seton Home Study students will be able to take any coursework. We design all the curriculum ourselves with them, making sure they read through the course content, and then they tell us what they want, and we design it, and now we're exporting it out to them. So we thought, well, Seton, why don't we reach out to Kobe Academy as well? So we now have Kobe Academy on board. We're going to reach out to Mother of Divine Grace and just offer these options for students to be able to take this. And our online courses, I know they're different than face-to-face, but we have included a great deal of the, the participation and commentary, and making sure that we try and provide it in a way that maintains the Socratic method in coursework. So that's what we're doing there. It's been very successful for us right now. So right now we have St. Thomas High School in Houston, Straight Jesuit College Preparatory in Houston, St. Agnes Academy, which is a Dominican institution, all girls Dominican, Duchenne Academy of the Sacred Heart, also St. Pius X in Houston, which is also Dominican, Kobe Academy, and Seton. And our thought is, we don't feel that this is only for the University of St. Thomas. If we can get other schools, whether it's Christendom's small, but I don't know what their resources would be in some area like that, or Ave Maria, or a Franciscan, and maybe we can create a consortium to where Catholic colleges and universities that are faithful to the church and have an interest in this can partner with Catholic high schools and in turn younger grades as well, to kind of revitalize some of the challenges that are occurring in Catholic education right now. Yes?
What would be the cost of the average course?
The cost of the average course, and this is great. With each partner, we've developed a different cost structure. I believe with Seton, they were comfortable with about $300 per course for their families. For the high schools, we really don't charge anything, as long as we know that we have the instructional costs, and it depends on how we run the model. For example, at St. Thomas High School, they have two of our alums that went through our, one of them went through our doctoral program in Thomistic philosophy. Another did our graduate, no, actually did their graduate, they did their undergraduate at St. Thomas, and then graduate work at the JP2 in DC. But they decided that we already pay these teachers, we'll give them an additional stipend to teach this course. So we worked out kind of on an individual basis. Seton, the only thing that we really charging is what they typically would charge, and then there was a little bit to help us pay the freighted costs of designing the course. But once we have the course designed, then we're good.
And the second question, particular field, subject, or all across the curriculum?
It can be all across the curriculum. We've had requests for, and this is also another thing too, because some of those subjects can be very dangerous, right? I mean, we all know, for example, my story was interesting in undergrad. I started in engineering, and then I, thought, well, I need to, I started interning for an oil company, Schlumberger Oil, and I was around a bunch of engineers, and God loved them, but that wasn't me. I needed to be around people. So I'll go into education. I took probably 3 weeks of education courses. This was at a public institution, and I thought, I'm not going into education. And then I ended up getting a behavioral science degree because I had hours scattered everywhere. But I kind of created my own liberal arts type of education. At a secular school, I took some philosophy courses and things like this and that, though we only spent maybe, I want to say combined a week or 3 class periods combined on Aquinas and Augustine. They were just skipped over. Well, for Aquinas, all of medieval philosophy was just, it didn't exist, right? It was all modern and such. So, for example, so in an area like psychology, you could get into a lot of really a lot of things can be skewed. In fact, most things can be skewed. So if we and some of these other Catholic schools can kind of help present a psychology course to Catholic high school students that's faithful to teaching to the church, then that would be very valuable. So those are some of the things, and we're really at the start of this. As far as the partnerships with Catholic high schools in Houston, we've been teaching our philosophy and theology with them. We've been doing this for about 3 or 4 years. But the idea to expand literally just happened probably within the last 7 months. And Kobe and Seton will just start offering this coursework this fall to their students.
But in Houston, it's live teachers
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
and no cost to the high school.
It's usually no cost either way. We both kind of work it through. I will say Houston's interesting too because here in the Northeast, there's always been a culture of Catholic education and an understanding, even for those who are non-Catholic, about, you always hear, oh, that's a great education. We're kind of really at the tip of the Bible Belt, right? And really the only kind of deep Catholic connection is kind of along Interstate 10 from New Orleans towards Houston. That's kind of the corridor. Coming through Dallas and everything else, it's a lot of traditional Bible Belt. And the thing though, what we've seen is because of Houston's kind of international feel is that among the 7 million in the metropolitan area, we have about 1.8 million Catholics now. So it is a very large Catholic archdiocese. So we feel that we're the only Catholic institution in the whole city. You go to Philadelphia or Chicago, other cities that are comparable in size, and others who are smaller, and you almost trip over a Catholic school at every corner. And we have one Catholic college and university. So that's some of the reasons why it's important. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that I wanted to tell you a bit of a story because this is really it kind of tells a story, I think, of how Catholic colleges are really struggling. And a lot of it starts with federal involvement in certain ways and compliance everywhere. There's compliance in everything, right? And there's been a lot about kind of staff bloat or administrative bloat that's been written at colleges and universities. Well, a great deal of that is caused by, and I'm not saying that these are in and of themselves negative things, but there's the realities that come with it, and maybe they start off very well and they start off into other things. For example, Title IX. The amount of staff and well-trained folks you need to bring on board in order to stay compliant, to even keep your doors open. If you're found in violation of some things, you kind of have to do that. Then there's the Clery Act, which is really extended beyond what should have been reasonable. So a lot of the expenses that colleges are facing, particularly smaller private Catholic liberal arts colleges, with the group that's pertinent here, is you have to spend a lot of your money on these type of things, a lot of your budget. And so going back to St. Thomas, a lot of this is also welled up in colleges and universities through student affairs offices, right? It's really interesting what happens in student affairs at the college and university level. It's quite scary to me. And over time, if you don't watch that area of a campus very closely, then things can kind of move in a way to where they kind of almost start to act on their own. So we had a student group that wanted to organize. It's basically around the idea of courage. You've heard of courage and your story, which led me to think about this a little bit more. Where we wanted to create a forum where we know we have students who have same-sex attraction issues that they would like to understand more, particularly from the teachings of the church, which is the only way that we would approach it. And so we have kind of developed this program. Well, we're in the process of developing this program where we brought, it's Dominican, Father Salcio, Father Joseph Marie Salcio, I think is his name, who's coming to teach in our Center for Thomistic Studies in the philosophy department. And we're gonna bring him down because we always had, over the last few years, student groups that wanted to start these various groups. And someone who, in the student affairs, unfortunately, over some hires in previous administration, really didn't have a strong Catholic faith or wasn't grounded in it. So they slowly, that area slowly secularized in a lot of different ways. And they kind of established, met with these student leaders, and they ended up giving it a name, the group, that was totally inappropriate. Before we knew about it, this was out in everyone from the Cardinal Newman Society to Life Site News was contacting us, writing stories. What is St. Thomas doing? And so the president had to write, kind of a story out there. He had to kind of talk to student affairs. He's making a lot of changes over there now that he kind of sees what's happening. But it really created a lot of heartache because we got a lot of phone calls from parents. What are y'all doing over there? I'm not sending my son or daughter there. And a lot of it was based on misinformation from the get-go by folks who could not articulate what was happening. And so they would do these interviews, and it just became really bad. So
What was the name they gave it?
it was something like the diversity and inclusion type of, there's a lot of, it has all these connotations that, I can't remember what the new name, there was, the president actually called him into his office and said, we're gonna talk about this, we're gonna change the name and everything. He was, I haven't really seen him live it very often, but he was very upset. But I also wanted to share one last thing with you, because some of you may know folks who are interested, if you're not yourself. We're starting a brand new, exciting program, the graduate level. And it's a Master of Arts in John Paul II studies. And it will have a component in Poland where you'll get to visit everything. And it's one of our great professors. Some of you may know the name. Dr. John Hittinger.
Oh, sure.
Yes. So he is the director of it, and he's going to spend the next year in Poland getting everything set up. But it also has an online component, so anyone across the globe can take it. And we've been getting students enrolled from France, from all over the place.
Is it a master's degree or?
It's a Master of Liberal Arts. Master of Arts in JP2, I just get to say JP2 studies. But he's pretty much put this all together. He's a great scholar for John Paul II. And so it's gonna culminate with a program to where we hope at some point we can start offering a component of it to the undergraduate students. And we think that will be kind of our hallmark. University of Dallas has the Rome campus. A lot of schools have the Rome campus. We think we are eventually going to have some type of campus in Poland for our students to be able to go to as kind of a capstone of their freshman year. So we have our challenges like other schools, so I ask for your prayers. And I even think about this as I was at the campus of Notre Dame a few weeks ago for an event. And we all know that there are a lot of challenges there. They do still have the Maritime Center, right, the Jacques Maritime. So I guess I would say that I see this with colleagues at many other Catholic schools, that even those that seem like they've completely gone off the beaten path, many of them have some really outstanding people there that are really working hard to kind of shift it. But sometimes, the numbers and everything's against them. But maybe if we continue to pray, then there might be a wave, And that's why I really appreciate the idea of the approach that I firmly believe people are attracted by what is good. And, young people have not been taught what is good, or they've been lied to about what is good. But they will be attracted by things if we work to teach them how. So I wanted to just throw this idea out there for all the minds here in the circles that you work with, because I think people, we all know people. And maybe it looks nothing exactly like this or just a semblance of this, but I do believe we need to find a way to where faithful Catholic institutions at all levels can kind of work together and kind of collect our resources together so that we can kind of expand our Catholic education system.
Yeah, I think what's being talked about here is what I like to call the feeder concept. Huh?
Yeah.
Catholic universities need to be concerned about Catholic high schools. Huh? Catholic high schools need to be concerned about Catholic elementary schools, right? And so this is, a process. Huh? When Dean Gillette was being interviewed for her job in the School of Education here, one of the questions she asked was, what does Seton Hall do for the Catholic schools of New Jersey, right? And that's not just there's a self-interest in that, obviously, but it's a critically important issue. And so I was involved with the opening of a very small new high school in the Diocese of Gaylord, Michigan. I guess they're about 5 years old now. Resources very limited, very small initial population, maybe 30 kids in the school. They've hooked up with some institution in Texas that they couldn't afford to hire a Latin teacher, and they do a live video Latin class with somebody in Texas, right? Now, I'm a great, fan of Cardinal Newman's concept of education, personal influence, and all the rest of it. But if you can't afford something, now they've got everything else is on site, but something like that, and I can see the same thing in an elementary school. Let's say you want to start introducing Latin to your 7th and 8th graders. Well, to hook into some kind of program, do you have Latin at the university? Something like that could be a joinder. Does St. Thomas give any kind of special consideration, tuition-wise, to graduates of Catholic high schools and elementary schools?
We do. We actually have a particular scholarship for anyone. We have a parish scholarship program within our archdiocese where we match. But if you're outside the archdiocese, which opens up to everyone else, we automatically give a scholarship amount to all students.
Do you know what percentage it is?
It's we have stackable scholarships. Likelihood that those students will probably receive about a 30% academic scholarship or 40%, and then they'll receive an additional about 5 or 10% just by virtue of being a Catholic student.
Yeah, and see, again, the smart Catholic colleges have picked up on this. If you have a kid that's gone through 12 years of Catholic school, you should know 2 things probably. That A, he can read and write, and secondly, that he's probably picked up something of the Catholic ethos that's going to benefit the university as a college community. But what's really good is to let your parents know about this in your elementary and secondary schools, because you can say to them, you've been spending thousands of dollars all along the line, but now there's a rebate that's coming to you at the level of college. So in some instances, I know some of the colleges are giving automatically free first-year tuition to a graduate of 12 years of Catholic school, right?
And so I think we're open to thinking about things like that because it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so if you think about that, let's say it's $35,000 for the first year. Well, if these people have been paying $8,000 for a high school year, $32,000, they're already making $3,000 on their first year of college for the kid. And at Seton Hall, it's not that much, but it is renewable by the year. So obviously, parents have to be thinking about dollars and cents of these things, but there's some real payback on that. It's unfortunate that you weren't here the other day because Monsignor Zaccardi, who is the vice president for Mission Identity, do you know him?
I know the name.
Yeah. Well, I think you should have a conversation with him.
Okay.
He stopped by for a bit the other day, but I don't know if he knows about what you're doing, but it's certainly the kind of thing that he would be open to considering. So, any other questions or observations?
One very positive one, we have a pretty good relationship with because sometimes for sure, but one of the obstacles that we encounter, we're small, liberal arts college, smaller now because we're in the buckle of the Bible Belt. You have to kind of understand and handle it. It's a challenge, but also we just downsized because we decided not to cancel our other programs and concentrate only on teaching. And we also have stopped taking federal aid because it's just, you cannot, you're almost getting to the point where you can't really get from that.
I see, Father Aidan, Father Aidan is from Northern Ireland. We are relatively free at the elementary and secondary level here, but at the college level, it is absolutely outrageous, the regulations, because of taking the federal money.
Yeah.
So,
And they had,
yeah.
there was a time when we were in junior college, we followed kind of the typical pattern of congregational college. And we had award-winning national championship boys basketball team, won the junior college championship. It got kids into college, lots of first-generation kids, lots of kids, Catholic and non-Catholic. It gave them the remediation and skills and development to succeed as they finished with four-year college. It was wonderful. We had to stop that because we couldn't finance a girls' basketball team.
Yeah.
Now, most of the girls in our school dressed exactly like me. And while we're very good at soccer, and the professors won the volleyball tournament on July 4th, away from the novices, we're not going to have a basketball team. But so since we couldn't offer it to women, we were not allowed to continue this.
By the way, I don't know,
It's kind of tangled against it.
at the elementary level, I don't know if any of you heard about this, last year, right in this archdiocese, there was an episode. A parish elementary school was not able to field a girls' basketball team that year. And so a girl said she wanted to be on the boys' basketball team. And the school principal, a sister, a Salesian sister, good community, said no. The parents went to the pastor who supported the principal. The family then went to the archdiocese that kind of, waffled a bit, but it's still, then they went to court.
Of course.
And they got a court injunction forcing the school to put the girl on the boys' team, which caused all kinds of consternation, both in the school and in the parish. Come May, the sister principal informed the parents that the children, they had another daughter, that their children were not welcome to re-register for the next year. On several bases. One, the complete chaos that was caused as a result of their action, but also, apparently, in the schools of the archdiocese, parents sign a document pledging never to sue either the school or the diocese, which of course they violated. And so the kids were not allowed to re-register. They went to court again, and this time, the cardinal was subpoenaed to come and testify. And to the surprise of many, he said, there's, no bishop in the church more supportive of Catholic schools than I. He's one of 13 kids, all of whom went to Catholic school in Detroit, right? He said, I believe in the product, and I believe every Catholic kid should be in a Catholic school. He said, however, it's not possible in this set of circumstances for these children to return to the school because of what has happened in both the parish and school community, which shocked a lot of people because many people have an impression of him as being, quote, liberal. The judge said, I don't know why this case is even here. He said, because I have no jurisdiction over a Catholic school, right? I mention it simply because this is something that you're going to be facing more and more. If you're saying no to certain things, whether it's, the co-ed basketball team or whatever, or as we talked about the other day with LGBT, XYZ and all that stuff, but you have to be prepared, and of course the important thing is, make sure it's in your school policy handbook, right? If it ain't there, it ain't real. And if it ain't real, you're gonna find yourself in serious trouble. So it's critically important that it be in teachers' contracts, and this is why in Indianapolis now, the diocese is on terra firma, precisely because it's been clear in the teacher contract. And that episode you saw recently, was that in Florida, where the teacher was tweeting stuff pro-abortion, and she's been fired. And she said, well, I didn't teach that in the classroom. But her contract said, in public or in private, representing positions contrary to teaching of the church. But the importance of the contract. We're a litigious society in America, You get a hangnail somewhere and you gotta find somebody to sue for it, right? And so you have to be prepared for that.
So with the philosophy and theology courses that you offer to the high schools, like Kobe Academy and stuff, have you considered doing a training and certification program where then the students can receive credit from your school in the future? Like what
They do.
Well, they do.
Actually, yes,
So
it's
you
great.
could get one of your teachers trained through you to then go back and teach.
That is also, I think one school did that also, yes. But yes,
Because I know in my high school, I got 12 credits of engineering credits from Rochester Institute of Technology, because one of our students
Right.
teachers got trained to teach those courses. So you offer something similar.
we are working on it, and you actually, on our phone call with the president, you had
That's right.
mentioned the need for Catholic educators type of program.
Yeah.
So, in some instances, we are able to do that, but I think we do need to develop, not just us, but we need to develop some systems for that, because that's, if you think about any possible impediments that would make it possible for a school that wanted to do it, that would be one of them.
Right. A Catholic AD.
Correct, especially those who really want that face-to-face, which I'm also a big, proponent of, right? So then only online would be the only recourse under this program in that instance, until.
Here's one for you. When I was a first-year principal, at the end of the year, one of the colleges in the LA Community College system came to our school and said, we'd like to offer courses on campus. And it would be free because the state was paying for it. And it would free up class periods in our budget so that it would help our budget by having these free classes on campus. So I agreed to it, and after a year of it, we weren't too impressed with the quality. We switched to another community college, which had a much better program. And so they still have the program, 2 classes a semester, and we switched it from electives to honors classes. It was honors history and honors English. And so an honors student who took all those classes in junior and senior year ended up with almost a year of college under their belt if they went to summer school once or something. We had kids finishing UCLA in 3 years rather than 4 because of this. It became a great marketing device for the school, and so that parents were interested because it would mean less money in college later. So when I became superintendent, I went to Loyola Marymount and I said, this is what we're doing. If you want to get behind this, this would be a great promotion for your university, blah, 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 blah. And the dean of the School of Education was interested because that was who I was always had to work with. He took it to the provost squashed it.
Wow.
So then there was a new president at Marymount College. He was very strong Catholic, wanted to build up the Catholic identity. He was very interested, and then the trustees removed him because he was too Catholic. So one of the ideas that I brought forward was, if we had teachers, high school teachers with their master's degrees in the subject, could they teach for the university? And they wouldn't have to get paid, because they're already getting paid by the school. But meanwhile, there'd be dual credit, high school credit and the college credit at the same time. We just need to have some program to incorporate them with the college. And that was where the provost at LMU had an issue.
That's exactly how our partnership with St. Thomas High School is working. So we get their credentials and we make sure that we have someone on our team that kind of makes sure that it meets all of our teaching requirements through SACS accreditation and everything else, and then they're deputized and they do it. Sometimes we'll provide a stipend, sometimes they will, sometimes they'll keep it as is, that they're already being paid. So we're kind of almost like a gentleman's handshake right now. I know that's probably not sustainable if it increases to all these different partners, but that's kind of how we worked it. I think that's a brilliant.
See, I think the other issue too is we have to admit how much time is wasted, both in high school and in college.
Yes. Oh,
It is very doable, conceivable
Yeah.
for a kid to do high school in 3 years and college in 3 years.
Well, we've gone the opposite way now. It's 5 and 6 year graduation rates.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
It was
Yeah.
commonplace for us to take 18 credit hours a semester.
Well,
Now
because
you're-
it's a babysitting service.
Now
I think
you're brutalizing students.
So how do you attest that the materials actually taught, so the credits earned? Do you have a standardized test you put out to the schools that take your courses?
No, okay, make sure. Yeah, so we actually provide the curriculum.
Right, and then, but do you have a final test?
We do, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Yes, we do.
Okay.
And then one of the pitches that we use too is because we also have the community college, they can do dual credit in Houston. Houston Community Colleges, they can actually do dual credit with HCC for free. But what we're finding is a lot of Catholic families, from the Catholic private schools, and even they don't have their children in Catholic schools, because we don't have a ton of Catholic schools. They see the value of, hey, I don't know that my son or daughter will go to St. Thomas, they may go off to Loyola or wherever, or Seton Hall, but we feel better that the course that they're taking is at a higher level at a top-tier private Catholic university that's faithful, and they also see it as an opportunity when they're applying to colleges and universities to enhance their resume and their transcript, because we provide a transcript. And it looks more impressive to say, I have credit from this institution than from this institution.
That was a selling point that we used with our parents. They are getting college credit in high school. It's gonna help with their admissions process.
Absolutely.
And parents just love it.
And save money.
Yeah.
I think another advantage to something like this is that it's a kind of a remedy for that AP trap. Because AP courses are whatever, I wouldn't say all well and good, but that's not
Out of
what I
control.
believe.
It's out of control.
They are, they put extra pressure on kids. They don't have the maturity to handle the subject in depth. They are high school kids who are living on a high school schedule, trying to master college content. It's a recipe for either surface or disaster.
I don't necessarily agree. I think AP can be done well. In my high
I do
school,
too,
we offer
but-
16 AP courses. I took all APs my last 2 years of school. I had a year's worth of credits. I got out of college early.
And
And I got 5s on all the national tests. So a good school can rank above all the public schools.
or a bright kid.
Well, most of my other classmates
Yeah.
were getting 3s, 4s, and
And
5s.
we had AP scholars too, where I live, and that changes the disaster. But for average kids, and you're supposed to make AP, that's their new philosophy, supposed to make it available for everybody.
Oh, see, we don't.
And no, nor do I.
See, that's where the legislators got involved
But
again.
this is a face-to-face thing that it's better than an online thing totally, because you've got an actual thing. And it minimizes some of the out-of-controlness.
We're gonna let brother have the last word here, and then if you want to continue the conversation, we can do this at lunch, huh?
It's just a wonderful point that AP raised. My confrere who teaches history at St. Francis College, he has a degree in medieval history. And he was asked to be a grader of the exam at the AP level in Kansas City. He got out every week for the past 4 years. He said if you wanted to find the ideological transformation of young students in the schools, look to that program. He said you couldn't imagine the indoctrination ideologically that was going on. The formation of the teachers and he said it was beyond belief. He said it was like the Marxist Institute in Moscow. And so I just pointed out that there are many ways that some of those programs, which I think have wonderful intentionalities, become drawn into a whole distorting influence. And he pointed out to me that that was one of the worst, experiences he had with that way of indoctrination.
Well, thank you all.
Well,
This was
thank you.
interesting.